Hi, this is Doug from Dynamic Computing, and welcome to episode 16 of 10-Minute Amiga Retrocast. Now, I've been spending a lot of time the past couple months on Amiga OS 3.1.4, which I think is legitimate because it's kind of a big thing that's happening in our Amiga community. It's not every day we get a new update to our 25-year-old operating system. So last week I covered a lot of the new features of Amiga OS 3.1.4. This week I want to talk about Best Workbench. Best Workbench is a pack of utilities that was put together by Gulliver. Gulliver's one of the guys who worked on the Amiga OS 3.1.4 project, so huge amount of credit to him for the help he's given. This pack was put together specifically to address some of the weak areas of Amiga OS 3.1.4, things that couldn't be put in because of licensing issues maybe, or they just couldn't fit them on the disks. So this is a great supplement, and I strongly recommend anybody who's using a raw Amiga OS 3.1.4 installation, download Best Workbench. Now I'm going to put his website right down there, so you'll be able to find it, and I'll also have it in the show notes. The utility comes as a zip file. Now why he didn't do it as an LHA file, probably because he was assuming most people are going to download it on their PC or Mac and then transfer it over to maybe WinUAE or copy it over that way. But it does come as a zip file. So if you download it directly to your Amiga, just be aware you're going to have an unzipping utility to open it up. Now, Best Workbench comes with a fantastic unzipping utility that you can't get to until you unzip it. Oh well. Now, when you decompress it, it's going to have a series of ADF files or DMS files. Basically, they're just compressed disk format files. I use the ADF files. Bring them over to your Amiga on a CF card. Burn them on a CD if you need to, however you need to bring them over to your Amiga, and make some real live disks out of them. That's the best and most authentic way that I do it. Now I use a utility called devcopy traditionally to create from ADF files to real Amiga floppy disks, simply because it's a command line utility, one line, here's the ADF file, put it in a floppy, done. Super easy, super smart. The Best Workbench does come with its own utility, which I will be going over. Let me show you a little bit about it. So, just getting on to Gulliver's website, lilliput.amiga-projects.net is his website. Get it? Gulliver, Lilliput, get it? Yeah, okay. But you can find Best Workbench on his website, and it goes over and lists what the software does and a general overview of the kind of apps that it adds, and it's got a nice little download link. Now his website works absolutely perfect in iBrowse for the Amiga. Once you download the software, it's going to come in as a zip file. So either you've unzipped it on your PC and moved it over as ADF files, or you have an unzip utility on your Amiga. But let's go to the folder. So you can see we've got Best Workbench 1 ADF, Best Workbench 2, 3, and 4 disks of ADF files and 4 disks of DMS files. Now, if you were to use the utility that I'm recommending, devcopy, to copy these over, let me show you how simple that would be. First, you would format a good old 880 kilobyte Amiga floppy. Just make sure it's formatted first. Pop that in the drive, and you type in devcopy, and then the name of your first disk. Best Workbench 1.adf. Hit the enter key, and it is literally just going to work. That's as simple as it is using devcopy. The name of the utility and the name of the ADF file, boom, it's flying. Once you've created all of your best Workbench floppies, all 4 of them, just insert the first one as you would expect and run the installer as you would expect. Here's an interesting part here. It's actually adding some additional libraries to the libs folder. Disk 3 is installing all of the guides and text files. This comes with great documentation too. Now they're located in your locale help English folder. By default, this is a hidden folder, so you'll have to show all files to get to the doc files in case you're looking for them. Disk 4 are all the different utilities, the CD player, the antivirus, Snoop DOS, text view, and all of the other program type utilities. Now, when we're finished here, it just wants us to reboot the Amiga. Now, I already had all the utilities installed, so I don't think I need to reboot mine. The utilities are stored in various places on the computer, and I'll go over where a lot of them are. Your tools drawer is going to have one of the most important utilities. This one is called Reddit. This is a great replacement for the Notepad editor that came with OS 3.9 if you were used to using that. This actually works on anything from Kickstart and Amiga OS 1.2 with 512K up to today's modern machines. Now the great thing about this text editor, number one, it's incredibly fast. So let's open up our startup sequence here. And number two, you can have multiple files open simultaneously. So now we're going to open user startup. And if we look here, under documents, our menu, there's startup sequence right there. And there's user startup right there. And it keeps both of them open simultaneously. And if you want to copy and paste between them, we'll just highlight those lines and copy, go to our startup sequence, go to the end here, and paste it down. Boom. We've now copied and pasted between 2 text files. Tried to do that in the ed editor without driving yourself crazy. And here's the other cool thing. Now when we look in our documents menu here, notice startup sequence has a little star next to it. That is the Reddit program telling us there's been an edit made to that file and that we should save that file because there's been a change made. There was no change made to user startup. Now you can open up as many files as you want to, and there's also no practical limit on the document size, pretty much just however much memory you have. Third really cool thing is Reddit is absolutely runnable without Workbench being loaded. So if you do the 2-finger mouse button salute on boot up, and you get to your boot menu, you tell it boot no startup sequence, just launch Reddit, and you're able to get right in and edit your startup sequence with all of the tools and utilities available, instead of having to be limited to using ed, which is, for the novice, kind of difficult to use. We're going to close out of that. I don't want to save it. Oh, save none. Another fantastic utility that they put the core in with Amiga OS 3.1.4, but enabled it with Best Workbench is the Find utility. You're going to find that in your Windows menu, and then click Find. Without Best Workbench or another utility loaded, this will be ghosted out. And now we can do a search just like you could on other platforms. Let's search for Reddit. Start search. Oh, I'm telling it to look in the tools folder, but it found it right away. You can tell it to search in whatever folder you want to. Let's do just the raw Workbench folder, and we're going to start the search. It's searching all of the Workbench drive now for our Reddit file. It's going to tell us when we find it, and it found a couple copies of it here. Oh, look at that. Oh, yeah. In my NetSurf folder, it's got a file called credits in there, so it sees Reddit as part of that, which is kind of cool. It actually found that. From here, you can just click on Show, and if it's a text file, it would actually show you the text related to it. Here's Reddit text, that's a better example. Yeah, now it opens it up in multi-view, and you can view a file right from there if it's a text file. Or you can go right to the program just by double-clicking it. So the find utility is very, very useful in here. And quick, too. Now, another useful utility is called CareMap, for character map. That's usually in the tools folder. I've put it out here on my desktop for ease of access. Double-click on that, and you're presented with your list of various fonts and letters that are available to you. For some of our foreign friends, you use some of these funky characters, the umlauts and the kumquats and the fosbots and everything else that you guys use that may not be quite so easy to access. With CareEdit, what you can do, let's get Reddit open here. Is grab these characters here. We're going to grab all these funky little characters. We're going to copy them into the clipboard. And now we can paste them right into our Reddit program or your word processor or whatever. So if you're trying to find funny little characters, different foreign characters, using the CareMap program will grab them for you. Now, one that works kind of nice is SnoopDOS, and this will give you an indication of the kind of things that are running in the background. So for example, if I run a program here like KeyShow, SnoopDOS is now telling me that it's a Workbench process. It's telling me where it was launched from, what program was launched. Now if I launch something else like, let's launch CareMap. Okay, once again, it's telling you what's going on, what it's using, what resources it's trying to use. Now this one, I've mentioned devcopy for creating or for dumping ADF files into floppy. Devcopy will also take a floppy and put it onto an ADF file. But Best Workbench also comes with TS GUI, okay, TrackSaver GUI, which is a utility that's designed from the ground up to manage ADF files, either create them or write them to a floppy. So for example, if I wanted to do my disks over again, I can go to my file here. We're going to go to my downloads, and we'll locate Best Workbench 1. Okay. Floppy back in. Now from here, we can either tell it to take a disk and create an ADF file, or like I did right here, you tell it what file to use. You take that file, you dump it to a disk. You can tell it to format the drive while you're writing it, so it will give it a nice clean format. I suppose in theory that should also work with an unformatted disk, but I've honestly never tried it. You can have it verify after you're done. You can take a full hard drive image and create a full image from a hard drive, which would make it for a really big file in my case, but is a nice graphics utility for dealing with ADF files. Very useful. I think you'd like it. Now here's a nice little tool, also in the tools drawer, a backup. What this is going to do is it's a complete backup utility for your Amiga. You can back up files and folders, back up entire partitions, restore entire files or partitions, verify them. So we'll go to backup here. We'll say we want to back up the chicken head folder, because why not? So it's loading the directory. Now it's saying, okay, where do you want to put that? Backup selection. We're going to select all here. Okay, I've told it to do all of it. Now we click the backup button and it will ask us to pop in a floppy. And what it would do from here, if I wanted to do that, is it would back up my entire chicken head folder, which is pretty big, 20 megabytes. It would back all that up to floppy one at a time. Now we're going to abort that because we don't really want to do that. Now, some of the cool things that they've also added on here are zipping and unzipping utilities. Now we've all used LHA, and this actually comes with the latest version of LHA. Oops, I need the MSC drive to do that. There we go. It's got the latest version of LHA in there, but it also comes with the latest versions for Amigas of the zip program and the unzip utility. So you can actually use zip and unzip on your Amiga files if you want to. Works really well. Now to go along with this, it's got this great utility called Unpacker. And Unpacker will work with LHA and zip files, and LZX files too, to decompress them. So let's find a nice file here. Here's bestworkbench.zip. Let's try that one. So we've chosen our file to decompress. Where do we want to send it to? Let's send it to RAM just for fun. Click OK. It's going to work its magic, and we should have in a few seconds. There. It's decompressed all of those Best Workbench files to my RAM disk now. See them in there? So it works pretty quick. Does not give you a lot of feedback. So if you expect it to be showing what it's unzipping, it doesn't seem to do that by default, although maybe we can change it and let it do that. Now, for viewing your monitors, it's got a lot of great new monitor drivers that come included with it. Let's go into our prefs. Let's go into our screen modes. Now what it's giving us here, there's all my CyberVision. It's got these called Film 24, 640 by 600 images, 1280 by 600. There it is, 1280 by 600. These are all 15 kilohertz. It's got HD 720, which goes up to 1280 by 720. High graphics, which goes 1024 by 768. So it includes all of these modes that the Amiga can handle. It really can do it. But what's going to happen is you're going to use up all your chip memory. If you set yourself up with a nice 1280 by 720 screen using 256 colors in AGA, it's going to burn through like a meg and a quarter or a meg and a half of chip memory. So the hint is, if you want to use those super high resolution displays with AGA, use them with like 4 colors or 8 colors, and you're going to be much better off. It won't use nearly as much chip memory and nearly as much bandwidth. And if you're using those modes on an ECS machine, if it even works on an ECS machine, because of the 16-bit chip RAM data path, it's going to be slow. So just be aware. Now, I don't use those because I've got my little CyberVision retargetable graphics, but it's great that it includes them. Now, here are some of the most fun components, in my humble opinion. That is the commodities. Okay? So I think we all know what commodities are. But for those who don't, basically what they are they're little utilities that run in the background that add cool features to your Amiga. Like, for example, Click to Front is a commodity that's been around for 25 years, where you can just click on double click anywhere in a Workbench window or the title bar, and it's going to bring that window to the front, so you don't have to be using the little toggle bars there. That's really handy, but that's been around forever. The commodities that it adds, there's one of them called Rewincy, which is a rather interesting name. Let's get a few windows open here. What it does is it activates left Amiga tab to cycle between your active folders and active Workbench programs. Now, if you have something on another screen, it doesn't cycle through there, but it does cycle through the ones on the Workbench. So there we've got the Amiga shell. I just release it, that comes to the front. Workbench disk, release it, that one comes to the front. Kind of handy if you're like me and sometimes you've got 15 or 20 different windows open, to cycle through them using, again, left Amiga tab to cycle right through them. And it also gives you cool details about the particular drive that you're looking at. 27 gigs free on that drive. Isn't that nice? Now, one that I love is one that's called New Mode. This is going to be useful for those of you who use retargetable graphics. Of course, things like games, old programs like ProWrite, they always want to open on a traditional Amiga window. They don't want to necessarily open on the Workbench, and they certainly don't want to open on a retargetable graphics screen. So in the past, we've often had to have a second monitor dedicated for those older programs that can't handle retargetable graphics. What a program like New Mode does, watch when I launch ProWrite, it's going to ask me, New Mode, promote screen, and it's going to ask me what screen to open this program on. I can now choose an 800 by 600 16-bit screen for ProWrite. If I hit save, it would remember that and it would launch that every time. I just click use, and now ProWrite comes in a beautiful 800 by 1600 screen. Works absolutely perfect. Nothing, no limitations, no problems at all. I actually use this all the time. Let's open a file so you can see what it looks like in glorious high resolution. There we go. So you can see all this stuff that comes up. Now, great for spreadsheets, great for utilities. There are some things that will not promote properly. Like if you try to promote sysinfo, it looks really terrible. But I would say 90% of the programs that I try to promote works absolutely fine. Deluxe Music 2.0. We want to use that on a, let's go really crazy on here. 1024 by 768 screen. Let's see what happens. We've got Deluxe Music 2.0 on a 1024 by 768 screen. Works absolutely beautifully. Now, Magic Menu. That is a fun one too. Magic Menu will allow you to right-click anywhere on the screen and get to your menus up at the top. So for example, there we've got snapshot. Oh, we're going to snapshot our windows. Now this will work from within any program. Again, we'll go back to ProWrite, right-click. Look at that. You can actually access your ProWrite, which was written in like 1989, menus using this utility, Magic Menu, and be able to access anything by right-clicking anywhere on the screen. Very handy. Our commodity, next commodity is Tools Menu. Now, Tools Menu can be thought of as kind of a replacement for AmiDoc in OS 3.9. So you can put programs in here And the way you put a program into this tools menu is by dragging and dropping it. So for instance, if I wanted to put DT view, which is a picture viewer, and have it on my tools menu, I can drag it, and as long as it's got an icon associated with it that has a tools menu, it'll work here. It won't work with like files in the C folder or anything like that because they don't have an icon. So now we'll save this. Here's what it does. Up here at the top, tools menu, there's all the files that I've put in there. I want to launch eyebrows, fine, I go to the tools menu, I click eyebrows, takes you right to it. I want to launch my HD toolbox, no problem, click it right there. So you can see how that can be used as a replacement for AnyDoc. Now I don't think it's quite as convenient as having a dock down below, and I still want to find a good one for Workbench 3.1.4, but it's a reasonable alternative for it. Now, one utility that's been added to help you deal with these commodities is in the prefs drawer, and it's a program called Workbench Startup Prefs. There it is. Double click that, and it will tell you which commodities are currently enabled and which commodities are disabled. So if you want to enable or disable something, you can just select it right here. Like if I wanted to put cron task and enable it, now it's going to remember that and it's going to enable it next time that I reboot the machine. So it's kind of a useful utility for handling commodities. There is also a new disk optimizer for your computer. This will work with the 64-bit file systems that we need for our new large capacity hard drives that are supported here. Disk optimizer will take your disks and optimize them, defrag them. Now be warned, it takes a long time. It can take an hour or two to defragment a small drive, and it can take overnight if you've got a 30 or 40 gig hard drive. So be careful with that, and don't do it if you have any important work coming up, but it is a nice tool to have available to you. DW, which is DirWork, is a utility. I guess you could say it's similar in theory to Directory Opus. I mean, you can obviously see the similarities here, what it's trying to do. It allows you to copy and paste and drag and drop between devices. There's what's on my RAM drive over here on the left. Here's what's on my DH0 drive. Then you've got copy, move, rename, delete, make directory. So if you like that kind of utility, where you've got your two windows copying back and forth, DirWork comes with Best Workbench. Personally, I don't use it. I do most of my directory making and copying and moving right from the shell, but that's just me. Your mileage may vary. So, as you can see, Best Workbench adds a lot of utilities to your Amiga that don't come with a standard installation. A couple of the things you could get on Amiga OS 3.9 by default. This adds them back in, like the Find utility. This also comes with a nice CD player. I happen to not have my CD hooked up right now, so I didn't demo that. It comes with a CD audio player. It just adds things and makes Workbench a little more complete, a little bit more whole. All in all, these guys are doing a great job. I say support Best Workbench by downloading it, using it on your Amiga, and most of all, have fun with it. It's a great set of tools. Now, if you guys find something in Best Workbench that you can't live without, and I didn't mention here, put it down in the comments, share it with everybody else. These are the tools that I use on a regular basis. I didn't cover every single one, because this is, in theory, supposed to be a 10-minute video cast. 10 minutes, Douglas, not 20 minutes, not 25 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm working on it, okay? It's a problem I have. But for now,
This is Douglas from 10 Minute Amiga Retrocast, signing out.